The 15th Doctor's first full episode is finally here. It aired about a day or so ago. I did a breakdown of the Season 1 trailer immediately, just because, in the moment, that felt like the most exciting thing to talk about. But yes, here we are, a day or so later. Let's talk the church on Ruby Road. My thoughts on the episode. Now, I think, as I kind of said on the channel in various videos, going into this, I was sort of expecting something fairly fluffy, light-hearted, Christmas special fare, that kind of thing we've come to expect, from previous Christmas specials. They never tend to be, nice as they are, they never tend to be anything too groundbreaking story-wise. There are exceptions here and there. Obviously, I think A Christmas Carol is magnificent as well, on a script level, on a story level. And there's stuff like The Husband's River Song that kind of starts off quite fluffy, but then actually turns into something really powerful and moving and poignant by the end of it as well. So yeah, there was kind of potential for it to go in that direction. I don't think it did with this so much. I think on the whole, it was kind of how I expected it to be. But I was also hoping for some nice character moments and surprises as well, not in terms of plot surprises, but just in terms of being surprised by the kind of the depth of the characters and the writing, and I think I definitely got that. I think there was a lot of stuff with Ruby and with her family, with her adoptive mum and her grandmother, Carla and Cherry, or Anita Dobson's character as well, Mrs. Flood, who I'm sure we'll talk about in more detail later on. But, once again, as we saw in the Star Beast and the 60th specials, it is that classic Russell thing of, really knowing how to write these characters. Every line they say is pure gold. All the dialogue and everything. Even the stuff as Carla is going down the stairs, leaving the house to go to the shops or something, there are all these conversations going on in the background about the flat below or the rent and things like that. All these little details, or Cherry with a cup of tea, that running joke there. Anita Dobson with a fun run or whatever it was, and the blisters on her feet. All these things that kind of do stick out to you, and you do kind of remember that they kind of stick in your mind afterwards. Yeah, it's Russell. It's pure Russell. It's him kind of coming to this with all of his worldly experience and crafting these brilliant characters. And yeah, like I say, every line I say is pure gold. I think the big thing that stuck out to me is that we kind of reached the halfway point, and that was sort of roughly when the Goblin song happened, which again we'll talk about a bit more in a moment. We kind of reached that point, and then sort of the second half of the episode, there wasn't kind of anything particularly new or surprising there. It felt like a lot of it was kind of set in the Sunday's flats. It felt like a lot of the scenes were there for quite a long time, and I have only watched the episode once, by the way, so, some of this might just be kind of initial first impressions that change afterwards, as well, kind of watching it at Christmas with family and stuff. You do kind of miss various bits of dialogue and things, just inevitably. But yeah, I think the whole thing with, Ruby and time changing and stuff felt a little bit weird, a little bit kind of okay, not quite sure what's going on here. I do think by the time, the ending came around, I think actually the ending was quite convincing and nice. And, I mean, that final scene, we'll talk about Ncuti and Millie, but that final scene where Ruby, realises what the Doctor is and who he is, and that he's a time traveller, and what that means for him and for her and for her life going forward. That joyous sequence of her running down the stairs and going out to the TARDIS, talking to Mrs. Flood, and then going into the TARDIS, coming out again, walking around the perimeter, her bigger on the inside moments, going inside, who are you? And Ncuti is just there, and he says, the Doctor, and it's just such a goosebumps moment. It really, really is. It's one of those moments that really just take you back, I think, to how it feels as a child, watching Doctor Who, and meeting a new companion or a new Doctor for the first time. I mean, those two were both utterly spellbinding. Ncuti and Millie, no, it's fantastic stuff. I'm so excited to see more of them, in the episodes next year. I thought maybe with Ncuti's Doctor, it was a bit of a weird one because I didn't feel like he had necessarily a sort of big hero moment. I guess he had the Goblin song where he joins in and sings along. It's a kind of different type of hero moment to what we've come to expect. There was a sort of traditional thing as well that always seems to happen in a Doctor's first episode, where they end up having some sort of stunt at some great heights. We had it with the 10th Doctor, obviously on the Sycorax ship in Christmas Invasion, with the 11th Doctor on the rooftop in the 11th Hour, the 12th Doctor fighting the half-faced man in the kind of balloon ship thing in Deep Breath, Jodie obviously on the crane in Ordinary Fell to Earth, and now Ncuti there with his intelligent gloves, not psychic gloves, as Ncuti accidentally called them in an interview, but yeah, there with the gloves, kind of holding onto this ladder and pulling this goblin ship down onto the church spire. In fairness, that was a really cool image. I liked that a lot. I think, yeah, I felt I wanted a bit more, though, from the ending, perhaps, maybe from his Doctor in terms of those big moments. I definitely wanted more of the goblins. I feel they were kind of one of the biggest casualties of this, really. Like, they're kind of there, obviously, lurking in the background of the sort of first half of the episode, not quite revealing themselves. You know, you see them on the rooftop when Ruby also sees them for the first time. You have the goblin song, that kind of first initial set piece. Then the Doctor and Ruby kind of come back down to Earth, and that's that. And obviously they're still there as a threat at large, and you see them briefly again a bit later on, you know, when that moment happens with the ship kind of coming down to the church spire. But yeah, I thought it was a bit of a shame that the goblins and the Goblin King didn't get more to do, or I don't know, that the kind of stakes weren't kind of taken up that extra level, like a kind of traditional sort of invasion story where you sort of have the initial threat and then it all kind of gets bigger and everything is more heightened almost. I felt that would have been a nice way to go with it. I guess it wasn't the story they were telling, it was a much more contained, simple thing with, you know, the babies and with Ruby and her story. I mean, let's talk about Ruby. Like I say, Millie, I thought was absolutely fantastic in the role. It really does help having a young companion who is actually played by a young actor. Who'd have thought it? But, you know, for years we've been doing this with Doctor Who, where we've had, you know, older people, like people that are 5 or 10 years older than the age they're playing that role. And I suppose a lot of the time that is like a kind of practical consideration. But with this, the stars aligned, that they had an actor of the right age. I think Millie is basically the same age as Ruby Sunday, if not like 1 or 2 years older. But it all kind of worked out, and she really just bring that kind of gutsiness, that kind of northern gutsiness to the part, that kind of Mancunian gutsiness, and that youth and energy and sass as well, which we have seen in previous companions, but having a younger actor playing the part does just make the world of difference, I think, in terms of making that believable, more believable than it would have been, and yeah, really hopefully making her a companion for the ages. Let's talk about the Goblin song. You know, us Doctor Who fans knew it was coming because obviously it was released a few weeks beforehand along with the lyric video, so we'd even seen that scene, but there had been a suggestion that there was going to be a kind of extended version, or like an extra verse, if you will, where the Doctor and Ruby both join in. That was a moment that, yes, again, I was sort of expecting. I still kind of don't know what I thought of it. Like, I think that kind of applies to the whole Goblin song. I do think, yeah, it's kind of growing on me a bit more that the whole idea of it is it's a very different thing for Doctor Who to do. It feels very Disney, obviously. But yeah, I think on the whole, like, for Ncuti's Doctor, it definitely suited his lively, sort of effervescent, charismatic, life-loving sort of character. You know, to be there singing that song and really kind of playing the goblins and the Goblin King at their own game, I did think that was kind of like a nice, funny touch. With Ruby as well, you know, playing in a band, it makes sense, you know, to have these two characters who are sort of musical and kind of outgoing and stuff to be doing that, and with the goblins as well. So yeah, it's one of those things that I think it takes a bit of time to actually kind of get used to the idea, but it's something that is growing on me, and it definitely looks like we're going to be seeing more of this type of thing in the future as well, so get ready for that. In terms of other thoughts, other favourite moments, just kind of briefly go through a few. I mean, I think a lot of the early half or third of the episode, where the Doctor and Ruby are kind of kept apart and kind of bump into each other very occasionally, that really worked for me, that idea. And having the 15th Doctor, you know, already there and ready and waiting to go. We have none of the usual kind of post-regeneration shenanigans or anything. He's there like the 9th Doctor. He's presumably been travelling around a little bit. And yeah, he is just fully formed already. There's none of that kind of baggage that comes with him, which kind of suits his Doctor, again, because he's just there, literally like dancing in a club and stuff. And I loved that scene, actually, in the club. I thought that worked really nicely with the song choice as well, with Ruby there, and that just infectious grin on her face, and the infectious like dance moves and everything from Ncuti as well, from the Doctor. It just worked exactly as I think they intended it to. It really, you know, it's one of those things, again, like the Doctor in a nightclub, that you think, will that work? But actually, I think in execution, it totally did. The other moments in that sequence were great fun too, especially that thing with the giant snowman head that was kind of late addition, where I think Disney felt that the Doctor wasn't present enough in the first half of the episode, so Russell kind of wrote it up. They filmed it only a few months ago, I think, but yeah, it was totally the right decision. Loved that, fantastic stuff, great visual with the snowman thing, with the taxi and everything, and the Doctor there as well, the little gag with the policeman, fantastic stuff. Loved that. I loved the moment as well that had been released as a clip beforehand. Like every time I watched that, I loved it more. You know, the bit where the Doctor is kind of galloping across the rooftops and Ruthie's there on the ladder, and he jumps on and they meet for the first time, and his theme is there in the background, just kind of building, and it feels like a real proper moment where it's like, okay, here we are, here we come. The 15th Doctor is here. His era is beginning. This is it. And similar feeling totally with that sequence I've already mentioned from the end of the episode, where Ruby enters the TARDIS. As I've said, she says, "Who are you?" And the line there, the delivery of that line, the Doctor, the kind of voice that we've never really heard before from the Doctor. I just thought it was fantastic, and it was such a confident end to the episode. If nothing else, that moment really propels you into this new era and really sets it up so well and so brilliantly. So those are my scattershot thoughts on The Church on Ruby Road based on my initial watch. But what did you think of this story? What do you think of it as a story, as a Christmas special, as the first story for the 15th Doctor and then for Ncuti? Do you think it did him justice? Do you think he was good? Was Melly good? What were your thoughts on how the whole thing kind of unfolded? The goblins, the goblin song, whatever your thoughts, I would love to hear them down in the comments below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new for more stuff like this in the future. But otherwise, I hope you're having a very happy Christmas week, and until the next one, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.